Here's another example from section 9.1. I'll just call it example 4. And this is a series, S sub n equals the summation, as n goes from 0 to infinity, of negative 1 to the n power, times x plus 4 to the n. And we want to find the function represented by this series. So this series will represent some function on a particular interval of convergence. So let's find that interval of convergence also. All right? So first of all, it's always nice to write down a few terms of the series, so just you'll get an idea of what's going on here. So a sub n when n is 0, a sub 0, or n when n is 0. Anything to the 0 power is 1, so that's going to be 1. And then also that to the 0 power will be 1, so it's just going to be 1. And then when n is, I guess I should put the n powers here. N is 0, 1, 2, 3, something like that. So when n is 1, that's going to be negative, so we'll have a negative sign. Negative 1 of the 1 is negative, and then we're going to have just x plus 4 to the first power. And then when n is positive, even, this will be positive, so that's going to be positive, 1. And then n plus 4 squared. And then when n is 3, this would be negative, so we have an alternating series here. And x plus 4 to the third, and then dot, dot, dot. And then this is our general term. Okay? Or the nth term, and we could just say this is going to be, well, we put plus minus 1 to the n times x plus 4 to the n plus dot, dot, dot. So it's going to go like that. Okay? So there's an idea of what the series looks like. So can we figure out, it's a geometric series, I should say geometric. But it's obvious because it is a geometric series, because do we have a common ratio? Yeah, it looks like if I multiply everything by x plus 4, but I'm alternating, so negative x plus 4, that's what I'm going to get. So it looks like my r will equal negative x plus 4. And my a sub 1, or my a, I call it a sub 1, but they call it in the formula, is 1. All right? Now, when are we going to find, when is this going to converge? This is going to converge when the absolute value of r is less than 1. Well, the absolute, if I kind of factor out a negative sign, the absolute value of a negative is just a positive. So the absolute value kind of cancels that out. So we end up with just x plus, the absolute value of x plus 4 is less than 1, which means that x plus 4 is less than 1 or greater than negative 1. And then if I add 4 to all sides of the, or subtract 4, excuse me, from all sides of the inequality, I got x is less than, if I subtract 4, I get negative 3. If I subtract 4 from negative 1, I get negative 5. So there's your interval of convergence, negative 5 to negative 3. So it's a little bit different interval than we've had, but sometimes we want to have a different interval so we can find some numbers that are going to work depending on our problem. So we don't always want the interval of convergence to be right around 0. In this case, this is the IOC, that's the interval of convergence. Interval of convergence, IOC. And what's in the center? Well, this is the center's right in the middle. So the center, we could write the center, is negative 2. All right? It's going to be a little bit important later as we talk about these things. And you can see the radius, if I go from, oh, sorry, not negative 2, right in the middle, negative 4. Sorry about that, I'm not thinking here. Change that. So the center is negative 4. because it's right between -5 and -3. I probably would have been better off just to write a little line over here and put my -5 and my -3, and you can see that the center would be right in the middle, -4. And this would be the interval convergence that's open. And if you look over here, if I put -4 in, -4 plus 4 is 0. So that's kind of an indication of what we'll be doing. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. So now we know that the sum of this series equals a over 1 minus r, as long as it's on the interval of convergence. So I can represent this also by a is 1 over 1 minus, and then r is negative x plus 4. And s sub n. And now we have a function of x, so I could write this as a function of x. F of x just depends on x, and that's going to be 1 over, and then if I multiply a negative times a negative is positive, so it's just going to be 1 plus x plus 4. All right, so my function f of x will equal 1 over x plus 5, as long as x is in this interval. -5 is less than, x is less than -3. So as long as my values are between -5 and -3, then this series is represented by this function. Or this function is represented by the series. In other words, if I put any number in here, like if I put -4, -4.5, or -3.5, anything in here, if I put any number in here in this series and carry it all the way out to infinity, this is what I'm going to get. I would just put the number there. I can work it out a lot easier. All right? Hope that makes sense.